Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for visiting us today, and I would really like to thank the Minister for coming today. We have lots of great questions for you as we're moving forward. Today, you'll be, of course, provided with 10 minutes, and thank you to both Gina Wilson and Annette Lapointe for joining from the Department of Status of Women on this. So, pursuant to the Standing Order 81.5, the committee will now begin consideration of the supplementary estimates. Vote 1B under Office of the Coordinator. That's not yet. Okay. Refer to the committee on Thursday, October 26th. The committee is also taking this opportunity to ask questions on the government's response to the committee's 7th report, Taking Action to End Violence Against Young Women and Girls in Canada, as well as discussing the implementation of the Gender-Based Analysis Plus that our work has done such great, or that our committee has done such great work on. So thank you very much for joining us today. And Minister Monsef, I'm going to pass it to you for 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Hello, colleagues. It's a privilege to be with you again. We are on traditional Algonquin territory and benefit from this land, and with those benefits come obligations that I know we are all working hard to fulfill. I'm joined here today by my Deputy Minister, Gina Wilson, and of course our Chief Financial Officer, Annette Lapointe. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members of this committee, past and present, for all the ways that you are contributing to gender equality. And of course, the witnesses that have come forward during my time in this role. We've heard from individuals who have brought their expertise and lived stories to this table around gender-based violence, around women's economic security, and all those perspectives have been incredibly helpful. I'd like to extend very warm welcomes and congratulations to the new members of this committee, Martin, Bernadette, Emanuela. We've been watching and very much appreciative of your contributions to this committee. And before I dive deeply into the content we're here today to discuss, I want to extend my sympathies to our honorable colleague Marc Serre. His father was an incredibly influential person, not just in his life, but in Canadian political life, and our thoughts and our prayers are with him and his family. I'm grateful to be here with you during the 16 days of activism, working to end gender-based violence, not just here in Canada, but around the world. And so on this final day of November, I think it's very appropriate that we're gathering here having this conversation. I'd like to speak with you today in my remarks about 3 things. You mentioned the gender-based violence strategy that we're implementing, Madam Chair. I'd like to speak with you about GBA+, the intersectional gender lens we're applying to the various ways we do our work as a government and you do your work as a committee, and of course, supplementary estimates B. So let's talk about gender-based violence, which has evolved. Social media is one way that things have become easier for unacceptable behaviors to extend their reach to more unwelcome places than before. The Me Too campaign that we've all heard in our communities, online, there are more people speaking out. There is more public attention and dialogue taking place. There are more high-profile cases being discussed. And of course, the media, traditional media, is playing an important role in shining light and amplifying the voices that are coming forward. But these stories are not new stories. We thank everyone who's coming forward with a lot of courage and with a lot of hope that we prevent this violence. But we have all heard statistically, anecdotally in our communities that there are disproportionate rates of violence occurring each and every day in every community, and too many people suffer in silence. My thanks to those whose courage and resiliency is shaping this conversation, and of course, our gratitude to those who care for them and their families through their healing journey. We know that gender-based violence is a significant barrier to gender equality, but it's one that can be prevented. And that's where your work as a committee has been so important to the government response on gender-based violence. This June, I was at the YWCA in Toronto, joined with by many leaders from the movement, service providers, experts, academics who had provided input to the gender-based violence strategy. And so $100.9 million was set aside for a strategy that we intend will focus on prevention, support for survivors and their families, and justice and legal systems that are more responsive. There's a focus on individuals that are particularly vulnerable across our communities. That's another area where the intersectional gendered lens we apply has been critical. It includes new funding for Status of Women Canada to support new programming and awareness initiatives, and this is how the funding will break down. About 40% of that money will support organizations and service providers. About 35% will support new research and data collection. About 15% will be focused on a knowledge center, which I'm going to talk a bit more deeply here today. And about 10% will support a national dialogue to engage Canadians in the much needed cultural change that is an important part of the solution we need to be putting forward. The Knowledge Center is a unique piece of the strategy. And as you know, this strategy was developed in consultation with our federal, provincial, and territorial counterparts, with people who do this work on the ground. And its purpose is to get the federal house in order, but also to fill in the critical gaps that we know are there, and some we didn't know were there until we started talking to Canadians and those with the expertise. So the Knowledge Center will do 5 important things. And I think the most important element for me as someone with a background in grassroots work is its ability to connect service providers with researchers and policymakers. It will better align Government of Canada resources. It will fill gaps that exist in the evidence and the data that we need to shape our solutions and interventions. It will support federal coordination and accountability on key actions that the federal government is taking. And it will lay the foundation for future work on gender-based violence. We know that this particular issue is far too complex to go away overnight or over a year. And so if we're going to be proactive in our responses, this Knowledge Center will allow us the foundation to thoughtfully think about future planning and interventions. Through the Me Too campaign, another hashtag raising awareness, we have heard and know why it's important to share knowledge, why data matters, why best practices need to be shared and elevated so that we can multiply our efforts and improve results more quickly. Through our ongoing work and collaboration with you, with those who do this work on the ground day in and day out, and the international community, we will create more safe, more inclusive societies. We will have more people coming forward. We will be able to prevent better, and of course, we will be able to better provide supports and justice to those who seek it. I'm going to talk a little bit about GBA Plus, Gender-Based Analysis Plus, give you an update. I know this is an area that you've worked significantly on, and I'd like to give you an update on the work that's happening in this regard. We remain committed to using gender-based analysis, but enhancing it as well. In April 2016, we put in place a GBA action plan to enhance the implementation of gender-based analysis amongst all federal organizations. This March, as you know, we tabled an interim report on that action plan with this committee, as well as with the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, highlighting significant progress achieved so far. Since that tabling, we've continued our work to ensure that systemic application of GBA Plus to government activities are taking place within central agencies, but also within departments. This spring, for the first time ever, we were able to table a budget that included a gender statement. This gender statement was made possible because of the foundational work that GBA Plus across departments had implemented. And what it essentially did, that gender statement, was set a high standard for openness and transparency as our government works to make more inclusive decisions, not just today, but in the years ahead. In May, during GBA Plus Awareness Week, Status of Women Canada launched an updated version of its online course, which has been completed by over 20,500 federal public servants and political staff to date, and by over 83,000 public servants and political staff since April 2016. That is real change in just a year, and it's an important part of the cultural change that needs to take place to ensure that it's intertwined into everything that we do. And I want to congratulate and thank all parliamentarians and their staff who have been engaged and participating in this process. I will also highlight that there has been a significant increase in demand from the expertise and the talents of the good folks within my team at Status of Women Canada. Supplementary Estimates B. As you know, the Fall Economic Statement outlined an increase in operational funding for Status of Women Canada, and that's reported in Supplementary Estimates B. We'll receive an investment of $41 million over 6 years, $7.5 million thereafter to increase capacity and be in better position to deliver on the government's commitments and priorities around gender equality. They'll strengthen our capacity so that we can enhance policy support for government's gender equality objectives. They'll increase our capacity to engage with our federal, provincial, and territorial colleagues, strengthen our engagement and outreach, and of course, support the development of a new results and delivery function. I'll stop here and I'll look forward to answering any questions that you may have, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I knew you had lots to add. I was continuing with the speech, so thank you very much for joining us. I would also like to welcome Peter Fragaskatos, who is sitting in the chair of Mark Saray, and as you indicated, today, just for your FYI, we'll be starting with 7 minutes per round, and we're going to be starting off with Pam Diamoff for her 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for joining us today, and to your department for being here as well. In my riding, Halton Women's Place has got an amazing program called Engagement, which sends people into elementary and secondary schools to teach young men healthy masculinity. We also have a male ally network that's run by the Sexual Assault and Violence Intervention Service of Halton. And I know just this weekend I joined you, Minister, at the Grey Cup Festival, where you had partnered with the CFL to encourage people of both genders, of all genders, to take the pledge to end gender-based violence. So I know that in response to our committee's report, Taking Action Against Violence Against Young Women and Girls, the government indicated that part of the $109 million that's allocated over the next 5 years to the federal strategy will be, there will be money spent on engaging men and boys. And I'm just wondering if you can provide some details on how Status of Women Canada and other participating departments are planning to engage men and boys as part of the strategy.
Thank you very much for that question and for your leadership here and beyond, Pam. Gender-based violence occurs in every place, in every community, across every culture. And our solutions need to be working across sectors. They have to include an intergenerational approach. We have to work in a multi-faith way to encourage other communities. We have to work across cultures, and we have to include men and boys. We all know men and boys who can be allies, who are allies, who want to be part of the solution. And yeah, the partnership with the Canadian Football League, this was a first for us as a federal government, partnering up with football players who are looked to with admiration by other boys and men, and having them go into schools and talk to students in high schools or even earlier about why it's important for them to end gender-based violence. Terry and I went to the Glebe High School last week to help kickstart 16 Days of Activism, and the BC Lions, through the More Than a Bystander campaign, are doing this work in certain communities, and watching them do their work was so powerful. They did it in a trauma-informed way. They did it through an intersectional lens. They relied on the power of their own stories to get their message across, and it was well received. We know that the White Ribbon, for example, is doing great work. We know the Moose Hide campaign is doing really important work around ending violence against Indigenous women and girls. And of course, we paid attention to the hearings that this committee had conducted, and we heard from the group in Halton, Savis Halton, and the really important ways that they're engaging in a grassroots way their own communities. Violence that is gender-based is not a women's issue. Men and boys can and do play a role, and we've seen the Prime Minister, frankly, demonstrate that healthy masculinity in his efforts, and I think we need to do much more than that, and we need to consolidate our efforts better. We need to coordinate our efforts better. We need to engage other players who want to be part of this work, not just here in Canada, but internationally as well, and the gender-based violence strategy provides that framework for us to do that work.
So thank you for that. And you're right, we do need men in positions who are sending those messages out to young boys and younger men. On Gender-Based Analysis Plus, I had my youth council, all of them did the course and surprised me by coming back with their certificate. And I got really good feedback from them. So it's extending beyond government, where hopefully those young people will take that gender lens and apply it regardless of where they go in life. And I had a question about how it's being applied. It was interesting, actually, Mr. Fred Peter and I just left the public safety meeting.
Mr. Peter.
Mr. Peter, where it actually came up was a gender lens applied to Bill C-59, the new national security framework, and we were told that it was. We're not sure if it's something that can be shared with us as a committee or whether it was confidential. But I'm just wondering if you can provide the committee with some further information on how GBA Plus is being used both legislatively and non-legislatively within the government.
Wow. So internationally, I can tell you that one of the new demands that is being created for Canada is our expertise around GBA+. Other governments around the world want to know how we do it, how we've built capacity internally, and exactly that, how is it actually applied. So we're actively working within my team to ensure that the right tools are available, not just for policymakers, but for anybody, whether it's teachers or service providers or municipalities who want to adopt this. And I know that my provincial and territorial counterparts are also working around this. We're committed to making sure that gender equality.
1 minute.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
No, you can finish. You've got 1 minute.
Okay. GBA Plus is through an order by the Prime Minister is mandatory to be applied in every item that comes before the federal cabinet. And it's being applied with a lot of rigor. The quality has risen. That cultural change that was really essential to it happening within government is taking place right now. That work can lead to community benefits agreements through infrastructure. That work can lead to a more thoughtful approach around public safety and security. That work can ensure that when we're talking about resource extraction, for example, that we're taking into account what that means for vulnerable communities. But what it does at the front end of the policy-making process, and I've seen committees do this especially, is it begins to have a different conversation amongst policymakers, and that will ensure that the outcomes are different and more not just aware of how the gender impacts are different, but mitigating factors are included as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on now on to Rachel Harder for her 7 minutes.
Great.
Minister, in July 2017, just this summer, the finance minister came forward with changes having to do with our taxation laws around small businesses. Now, I heard from many people in my riding, particularly women in my riding, who are doctors, lawyers, farmers, or who run other entrepreneurial endeavors within my riding. And they came back to me and they said that these tax changes really hurt them. They really impacted them. They impacted their ability to be able to take maternity leave. They impacted their ability to be able to save for their children's education, for their ability to take sick leave, for their ability to take leave in order to care for a sick loved one, things like that. And so at the end of the day, these women would argue that they were actually disproportionately affected by these tax changes. Now, can you tell me, was GBA Plus looked at when this proposal was put forward by the finance minister?
Thank you for that question. Absolutely. GBA Plus is taken into consideration in our consultations, but also in the outcomes that we deliver. The tax reform consultations that you're referring to heard from lawyers, from professionals, from doctors, from business owners, and we listened. And so what actually was
I'm actually going to stop you right there, because I actually have a document in front of me that was actually signed off. It was signed off by Mr. Joel Lightbound, who is the finance minister's secretary, and it actually says that gender-based analysis was not applied.
Well, as the Minister for Status of Women, I can tell you that it was and it will continue to be.
So are you saying that your colleague lied then?
And as far as the changes themselves, please allow me to answer your question.
I would love that.
What we've actually heard from stakeholders across the country is really valuable feedback, and all MPs help contribute to that consultation process. The tax changes that were actually announced was we're lowering taxes for small businesses.
Minister, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop you right there, because the document in front of me actually says, okay, based on an ATIP, that gender-based analysis was not applied when it comes to passive income and the changes that were made by the finance minister.
At the time,
Minister, my question is very simple. I'm assuming you were at the cabinet table, yes?
As a cabinet minister, yes.
Yes, excellent. Now, I'm assuming then, as a cabinet minister at the cabinet table, I'm going to assume that you were given a voice. So your voice could have been used in one direction or another. So you could have advocated for women and the fact that these changes disproportionately had an ill effect on women across this country. Or you could have remained silent. That's one option. The other set of options is you could have used your voice and taken a stand for women and had your voice ignored, which tells me something about the way your cabinet functions and whether or not women are actually given a voice. So, Minister, these are our options. So which one is it? Did you stand up and speak out on behalf of women in Canada, or did you neglect to?
Firstly, I can't discuss with you what we talk about in cabinet. I'm sure
Can you tell me whether or not you advocated for the well-being of women in Canada?
Every single day I advocate for gender equality. The passive investment piece that you're referring to, the reason there was no gender-based analysis at the time that ATIP was done is because there was no legislation to do an analysis on.
There was
I can
a policy
tell you that
came
work
forward
is
from
done,
cabinet.
and that analysis was taken into consideration. We heard from women who want to save for maternal leave. They want to be able to save for rainy days, and that's why we increased the threshold in passive investment far beyond what was expected of us. rights. We reduced taxes so that female entrepreneurs could have further abilities to invest in their communities and to create jobs. And I can assure you that as a government, gender equality is a priority. So nothing we put forward, for example, in terms of tax measures, is going to contradict that ultimate goal and priority of ensuring that all genders thrive.
Minister, thank you very much. With all due respect, I asked you if GBA Plus was applied. You said yes. Then you said, actually, no, it wasn't to that measure. So there's no. Are you lying to me?
No, Rachel, I'm not lying to you. But it's hard to apply a GBA Plus to something that doesn't yet exist.
It was a policy initiative. There was a paper written.
It was a reform that was being proposed.
Thank you. I'm going to go on to my next question.
With Canadians on, and I can assure you that come budget 2018, that budget will have a gender-based analysis done. It's a historic effort that's being done, and I'll be sure to keep you in the loop of that process. Should you remain interested.
My next question that I have here then is with regards to the citizenship guide. Now, I'm again going to assume that you've been a part of the conversation, that you've been included. Now, the citizenship guide is being revamped, and as a part of that, it is intended, or the draft shows us, that female genital mutilation, FGM, is going to be taken out of the citizenship guide going forward. Now, FGM. Now, I actually will read exactly what the UN says about it. It says, FGM includes procedures that intentionally alter or cause injury to the female genital organs or for non-medical reasons. Beyond extreme physical and psychological pain, the practice carries many health risks, including death. Now, this is a practice that the former government put in the citizenship guide in order to say, we as Canadians do not stand for this. This is a wrongful practice. It's a mistreatment of women. It's violence against women and girls. Your government, the Liberal government, came in and they said, no, we're going to take that out of the citizenship guide. There's no need for that to be in there.
1 minute remaining.
And so it's no longer in the draft. Are you silent on this as well?
I don't know what as well means,
Or did you use your voice and was it ignored?
I can assure you I use my voice well.
So why are you taking this out?
Madam Chair, myself, the government, and all Canadians condemn the practice of female genital mutilation and cutting. It is illegal. It has been since 1997. We are revamping the citizenship guide. We are ensuring that it includes a better picture of the history of this place we call home, and ensuring that it includes better understanding of gender equality and rights for women who are coming to this place and calling it home. We are working with my Gender-Based Violence Advisory Council to ensure that any contributions we make to that draft leads to more accessible, more informative information. Nothing has been finalized. I appreciate the member's concern, and any constructive feedback she has on solutions, I'm definitely open to that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Minister. I recognize that there was a little concern about me cutting off. I think it's very important that when we have the Minister that we do have the opportunity to have a very bold and sometimes difficult discussion. So I will allow this to occur as long as it's not actually attacking the person at a terrible and personal nature. So just to set the ground rules there for you. And I'm now going to pass off to Sheila Malcolmson for her 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being with us. I'm going to try to fit 3 questions in, so I hope we can be as yes-no-ish as possible. Okay. One of our first jobs as a committee was reviewing gender-based analysis, and we made recommendations 7, 8, and 9, and 10 around national coordination, national leadership on the issue of post-secondary sexual assault and rape. Yeah. We heard from many witnesses that they would like to see the Government of Canada lead national coordination of policies to prevent campus rape. That was reflected in the New Democrat minority report. It wasn't in the majority report, but I still urge you, regardless, to take that leadership. So the consensus recommendations were in all those areas that the issue of campus rape be raised at the next meeting of the relevant ministers, provincial and territorial, and that was a commitment in the response that we got. the federal response, I think this was maybe from your predecessor, was that provinces and territories are primarily responsible. It's a matter of provincial territorial responsibility, but Department of Justice and Public Security have agreed to discuss the issue with provincial territorial counterparts to the table of the ministers responsible. So, saddened that that campus safety was reduced to an agenda item. Nevertheless, that was the recommendation of committee. Could you tell us, was that on the agenda? Did you get a report back? What is the leadership that the federal government's going to take?
Thank you, Sheila, for all your leadership and ongoing efforts to address gender-based violence and enhance opportunities and choice for women. In terms of GBA plus, that aspect of your question, we will be coming.
I'm just going to be clear. It was campus rape. I haven't asked about GBA plus yet.
You referred to GBA plus, so I will come back to that later.
I misspoke.
The National Coordination of Campus Violence that is gender-based is certainly an item that's not just on my agenda every day, but it was something that colleagues from provinces and territories had discussions on ongoing, but also at the FPT. We know that about 40% of the cases of sexual assault that are reported are being reported by students. And for any parent out there, when you send your kid away, you want to make sure that they're safe, that they're building a better future and not finding violence and insecurities that can scar them for life. And so this is a priority. One of the other ways that we are intervening, there have been funding that has been provided to various campuses across the country. Some of them I met with over the summer.
Minister, I'm going to interrupt.
We're developing a toolkit.
I'm actually just looking for whether it was the agenda item and if that intervention was successful.
The gender-based violence strategy was an agenda item. I can provide this committee with a statement that came from the FPT meeting so that if you haven't had a chance to see it, you can have a better sense of all the ways we talked about issues that affect women and girls.
Fantastic. Thank you. I would love to see that.
Sure thing.
So another, the GBA report, really this time.
All right.
I'm using the right word. So our consensus report, which again your predecessor responded to, was that a recommendation that the government introduce legislation by June 2017 to create the Office of the Commissioner for Gender Equality based on the model of the official Office of the Commissioner for Official Languages. The response we got from your predecessor was, I will consider that, and I'll report to you in March 2018. Why not a gender equality commissioner right now, and what are you going to do about it?
Thank you, Sheila. One of the first steps was having a minister devoted specifically to status of women, so that around the cabinet table and behind the scenes, there is someone every single day spending every single hour advocating for all issues that can impede but also promote gender equality. And so my predecessor did a wonderful job, and I was so thrilled to pick up this work and continue it day in and day out. I'm open to the idea of legislation of GBA+. I want to make sure that it's successful. I want to make sure that in years from now it continues, that we're not just focusing on a check mark next to was a GBA+ done, but we're focusing on the quality. And so that work requires building capacity and that culture of making it be second nature to apply a GBA+ lens to everything, and that work is happening. And so come March 2018, we will be reporting back to this committee as promised on our plans on how to move that forward, and rest assured that this is something that we all care deeply about and are invested in.
Well, you've anticipated my third question, which is when will you agree to the consensus recommendation of this committee that the government introduce legislation to make GBA mandatory? That way it's not an internal private cabinet matter. We all know how it's being done. It's legislated. It's binding on future governments. All three parties agreed to that. So we asked for legislation to be tabled last June. You're saying you're open to it, so that is good, but still
1 minute
we would
remaining.
have hoped it would have happened earlier.
Sheila,
But the question I asked a minute ago was about legislation to create the Office of the Gender Equality Commissioner. Can you talk about that, please?
Not too deeply right now, no, because it's part of a larger picture of not just putting in legislation, but making sure that the legislation is enforced. And you're right. Right now, we have a prime minister that's a feminist, so he said, apply the lens, and we are. But we need to make sure that this work continues long after we are gone. All of us around this table will continue with our lives, but the work of gender equality and the federal government's responsibility will continue. When we provide an update and a report in March, we'll be as thoughtful as we can in how we're going to move ahead. As I said, I'm open to the possibility of legislation, but we need to make sure that it's thoughtful, that we have the capacity to deliver on what is being legislated, and we need to have that conversation internally, but also with experts, and that work is going to happen.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now we're going to move on to Sean Fraser for his 7 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here. I've been proud of a number of initiatives that the government's undertaken. At the top of the list is our efforts to achieve gender equality, not just in spirit, but by backing up with funding. At the same time, I sit here today with some seriously mixed emotions because as I see some important reforms going on in my own community about support for victims, some great initiatives with law reform, with the appointment of sexual assault prosecutors in Nova Scotia, some great work by local RCMP officers like Deepak Prasad and Annie Ganesh, who's actually attending the Women's Resource Center's meetings on sexual assault.
Oh, good.
But at the same time, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that just days ago, charges were laid at my alma mater, St. Avext, against 2 young men who have been alleged to have committed sexual assault. There's some great work going on in my community, but when it comes to the sort of third pillar that you mentioned, not just supporting victims and reforming the system, but the prevention effort, how is the National Gender-Based Violence Strategy going to specifically communicate the most simplest message that I can possibly imagine? It is not okay as a young man to commit sexual assault against a woman on campus.
My goodness. Sean, firstly, I don't know if the victims of those assaults are paying attention, but our thoughts are with them and their families. This violence doesn't just affect individuals, but it spills into communities and into families, and we all know that around this table and beyond. The focus on prevention is what we heard, and you heard clearly from the victims and survivors who had come forward, hoping that that's what would be the result of them, and the cost of coming forward would be outweighed by the benefits of preventing it for someone else. And I think it's the most effective intervention that we can make. The gender-based violence strategy does that in many ways. One of those ways is that the work isn't just being done out of Status of Women Canada. The work that is being done to prevent, to support survivors and families, and work on that justice and legal systems you spoke of at the beginning of your question, Sean, it's happening across government. So public safety has a role. We're working with Health Canada through their public health agency, for example, to ensure that we're intervening better through programs for parenting, through teen dating violence initiatives, for example, explaining and exemplifying what healthy dating for teens looks like. With public safety, it's about cyber violence and making sure that some of the dollars are invested towards those measures. We talked earlier about putting more focus into engaging men and boys, and Terry's taking a really significant lead on that, as are many members of our communities and colleagues. The work that also needs to happen, and we've seen that through the Me Too campaign, there is a willingness and there is a need for Canadians to be part of a conversation. This isn't something that we can sweep under the rug anymore. Voices are amplified through social media. So let's leverage this tool as a way to engage everyone in this conversation and ensure that that cultural change that we can't legislate our way through happens through grassroots efforts moving up. I can tell you that organizations across this country that we have the privilege of working with, of hearing from, they're doing this work, and they've got their ear to the ground, and they're an important element of that change that we need to bring forward. And at the end of it, we have to ensure that whatever we do is done with survivors at the heart of the efforts. What I didn't get to finish with Sheila's question was we are developing a toolkit based on all the best practices that we receive from programs that we have funded to other campuses across the country so that we can offer post-secondary institutions a toolkit to do this work. That willingness is there, that leadership is taking place across the country, and we also know that our provincial and territorial counterparts, especially the provinces whose jurisdiction this work really is, are particularly invested in being part of a solution. So I share your grief and your disappointments in that this is still an issue, but I'm hopeful that we are in the process of creating and building relationships that will help advance the change that we need.
Thank you very much. And to anyone listening at home, we know campus violence against women is endemic to the university and college atmosphere in Canada. I hope this particular case doesn't become about the impact the process may have on the alleged perpetrators, and don't forget the impact on the women who've been affected by this. Just turning to the questions from my colleague Ms. Harder earlier on the issue of the proposed tax changes. My understanding was essentially that our government does GBA on any piece of legislation, that in terms of the income sprinkling test, GBA was applied, but because there was no legislation on passive investment, it hadn't been applied to that legislation, but through the consultations, gender considerations were taken into account, and that was reflected in some of the adjustments that, for example, will let a business owner save up to $1 million before the passive investment piece affects them, to take care of the concerns that I actually heard on the trail as well when I did consultations, like maternity leave, like taking care of a loved one, et cetera. Is that a fair summary of what you were getting at?
Sean, thank you for outlining what actually happened and how things unfold. Yes, GBA Plus is applied to the consultation process to ensure that we're as inclusive as possible in the questions and in the way that we do our outreach, so that we listen to all voices before developing policies. And once legislation is developed, there is another process that we go through around the cabinet table. There's more than one feminist around that table that raises issues like those that you refer to. And I'm pleased to say that the changes that were introduced as a result of that consultation process are met positively. And entrepreneurs in my own riding, professionals in my own riding, my stakeholders across the country are pleased that they were heard. It was a courageous conversation. As the chair mentioned, we need to have those conversations, but if done right, those conversations lead to better outcomes, like lower taxes for small businesses.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. We're now going to move on to our second round and start with Martin Shields for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank the Minister for being here today and for the conversation. Activism's interesting. Having been a university student in the U.S. in the late 60s,
Oh my.
our activism now pales to what I experienced. This is mild stuff.
This is not the name, Martin?
Yeah, university students got shot and killed in those days, and I lived through that. And I shout out to Cantera House in our community. It's an award-winning women's shelter. It's been recognized. The sad part about it is the community says it's too bad that we have to have it, but it is an award-winning one, and people in our community have done an extremely good job of building a class facility. But I'm going to return to a process type of thing. Having been involved in process a lot of times with legislation and pieces of legislation, having been involved in doctor recruitment for 15 years,
Yeah.
it's a critical issue. In Alberta, outside of Edmonton and Calgary, everything is called rural by the government, and it challenges medical outside of rural, and female doctors is a real challenge. As my experience in dealing with legislation through many levels, you work very hard to try to find the unintended consequences before you run anything out. If you're sitting at a table, the unintended consequences of this were so loud and clear. It's unbelievable for me to see that somebody sitting there with a lens would not see this. Where was that lens as this policy was developed?
Thank you very much, Martin, for your question and for your work on this committee. I come from a rural-urban riding, and we work very hard to recruit and retain physicians in my area, especially because we're one of the aging communities across the country, and that access to healthcare is a critical need for my constituents, and that's the case across the country. In terms of consultations, the whole point...
No, policy development. I'm going back a step further.
The policy wasn't developed first. You know, we could have just introduced a policy and thrown it out there.
You ran it out.
But we decided to listen to Canadians first, to hear from MPs across party lines first, and we did that. And the outcome in the end took into consideration those realities in rural Canada, took into consideration the voices we heard from female physicians and other professionals, and the outcome, as you know, Martin, has led to better results for small businesses and for those physicians who were worried about not being able to save through passive investments. Yeah. It's $50,000 a year that they can hold on to without being taxed. For example, that's up to $1 million. So whether it's retirement or parental leave or saving for a rainy day or caring for loved ones, that threshold has now been highlighted, and that's what the consultations enabled us to do. The policy itself, legislation itself, does not yet exist. That consultation process brought us to a decision that will now go through the House of Commons, that will go through committee, that will be voted on, that will go to the Senate, and then come back.
Got you. Passive income is a lousy word because that money is working. It's not passive, it's working.
In most places it is, but for the top 3% of corporations across the country, which is the focus of the legislation, this particular intervention was meant to focus on the top 3%, and that's about 29,000.
A female doctor putting money aside, and you're calling it passive income? That's not passive income.
I didn't make that word up, Martin.
But I'm saying you're involved in the
1 minute remaining.
We all are.
And I'm objecting to the term. Well, and when you put out there $1 million, when you talk about a female farmer and land selling for $12,000 an acre in my area, $1 million isn't going to cut it.
We're not changing the capital gains exemption that exists for farms, so rest assured, no need to touch that aspect of the way things work, whether it's for farmers or other small businesses. And Martin, if you have any amendments that you'd like to make to the terminology used or the substance of the legislation when it comes forward, I hope you speak to it in the House of Commons.
Trust me. But I really have a problem when you develop policy and you say, we ran it out and you didn't see the unintended consequence of this one. That, to me, is not using the lens that you should have used when 60% of our docs are females under the age of 35, and how badly this affects them, how much passive income you call it passive, has already left the country.
I will add that until we came into government, this lens being applied was not mandatory.
And I wasn't there.
And we're working to improve that day in and day out. And it's good to know that we have a champion in you around this table and within your caucus as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're now going to carry on with Emanuela Lambropoulos for her 5 minutes.
Thank you. So thank you, Minister Monsef, for being here with us today, and thank you for all the great work that you've been doing in your position. So my question is actually regarding the most vulnerable women. As you mentioned in your 10 minutes, those women are the ones who are marginalized, and so many of them are coming from countries, or newcomers coming from countries that don't regard women in the same way, and where women are actually oppressed. Can you inform us about the ways that we're reaching out to these women and to help improve their situations?
Thank you very much, Emanuela. And thanks for all the work you're doing here. I know that we threw you into the deep end in some ways with the work that you're doing, but you're excelling, and your contributions to this place matter a lot. In terms of the focus on vulnerable groups, especially vulnerable women, the way that the intersectional gender lens is applied to any consultation process or any policy or regulation that we put forward, very roughly, it's how does this affect women and men differently? What about people of different genders? What does this mean for persons living in rural and remote Canada versus urban centers? What does this mean for seniors versus young people? What does this mean for Indigenous persons versus migrants to this place? What does this mean for persons with disabilities and exceptionalities, for Francophones, for LGBTQ2 communities? And that's the frame that analysis is taken into consideration. Within the gender-based violence strategy, we heard from stakeholders that it was critical that we focus on those populations that are particularly vulnerable to violence, because we know that there's also a confounding factor that happens. So if you're a woman with a disability in rural Canada identifying as LGBTQ2 and a Francophone, you have a whole other set of barriers, but also vulnerabilities that can make you susceptible to violence. So the way that we're intervening is, firstly, we're making sure that we hear those voices. And many thanks to my Gender-Based Violence Advisory Council, who help ensure that we stay current, up to date, and aware of these voices and that intersectional lens that we need to be applying to the work that we do. More specifically, on the ground, we rely on expertise from organizations that we fund to do this work for us. We will be focusing on those vulnerable groups within the funding that will be rolled out as part of the gender-based violence strategy. We also need to make sure that we have a better understanding of what's actually happening. So whether it's female genital mutilation and cutting, whether it's challenges that persons with disabilities have around gender-based violence, whether it's trans women and those living in urban centers versus rural centers, data and statistics is going to provide us with a better understanding of the scope of challenges, but also the Knowledge Center is going to make sure that an intervention in Antigonish, for example, that is proving to be successful for vulnerable communities can be shared with those in a community in the Yukon, for example, so that we're not funding the same projects over and over again, but those best practices are being shared and we get to the outcomes we need to faster and more effectively.
Okay, thank you very much. And also, I'm a firm believer that gender stereotypes have a lot to do with women's economic security. And so regarding that issue, what are we doing for the young girls in our country?
Thank you for that big question, and I hope someone else asks so that we have more time to talk about wage gap and how stereotypes are an impediment. We can legislate a lot of things. What we can't legislate is change in attitudes or the cultural change. So what we're trying to do through our efforts across government, encourage more women and girls to enter STEM, provide more flexible leave options, make sure that if she's leaving an abusive situation, that her job can be protected and that she can take that leave to put her life back in order. We're working to ensure that we have more childcare spaces, for example, so that women don't have to choose between work or taking care of their family. We heard from the Governor of the Bank of Canada that the Canada Child Benefit is stimulating the economy in an important way, and one of those ways is its ability to give parents the choice and the money to do what they need to do, and what many parents are choosing to do is put that money towards childcare so that mothers can go back to work, and sometimes fathers. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. This is an issue shared by G7 countries. This is an issue we hear from stakeholders and service providers every single day, and it's an issue that we are committed to.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We have time for 2 more sessions, so we're going to carry on with Rachel Herter for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to split my time with my honourable member Martin Shields here. My question for the minister is simple. In combating violence against women and girls, I think you would agree with me that it's about taking a stand for equality. It's about taking a stand for choice and respecting a person's choice. It's about allowing women and girls to function on the notion that no means no. We often use that phrase. And standing up against violence against women and girls also means that a person's voice should count. Do you agree? Perfect. Now, at this committee, we have a chair, Ms. Vecchio, and she is a phenomenal chair. But she was put in place against her will.
Oh.
When she said no to being put in place, her voice was ignored. The 6 members opposite of me, who happen to be Liberal members of this committee, all forced her to take the chair. As Minister for the Status of Women, do you agree with this decision? Or do you believe that the choice of the chair should have been respected?
Well, firstly, I want to congratulate you on your chairpersonship and thank you for the leadership role you've taken on. I also want to acknowledge that the committee is the master of its own destiny, and so I will not get into that.
I'm just asking if, as a minister, if you agree with the decision or not.
As the Minister for Women, I think the person who leads this committee has to be someone who believes in gender equality in the fullest sense of the term.
So do you agree with the choice of your colleagues to force
in all
Ms.
areas
Vecchio?
of their life, including the choice over decisions about their own bodies? Gender equality starts with that basic fundamental choice, and the spokesperson for this
start with that
committee
fundamental
has
choice,
to be
doesn't it?
someone who's able to bring diverse voices together and be able to communicate with Canadians the important messages and the work that this committee does. I want to take this opportunity to thank Marilyn Gladue for the very important and effective way that she provided leadership to this committee, to Canadians, to the government, and wish her the best in her endeavors beyond this committee. But I also want to thank the chair of this committee for all the ways that she's keeping the ship running and making sure that really important work continues to get done.
I'm going to back to a theme. Surprise.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm going to go back to the theme that I was at. And I think in a sense, this is one that relates to the newcomers. And I'm in a community that's got probably 100 different countries represented, and it's an economic reason of why they're there. But without female doctors, we have women at risk with some of the most severe things that I have seen in a community. So we've got a tax policy that's out there being amended, but I think it's not going to work in the favor of female doctors in rural areas. And I'm challenging you to that voice at that table to change that so that it does have female doctors outside of our major urban centers, because the proposal didn't. What's coming still is problematic, and doctors, females, tell me it's still problematic. So you haven't fixed it. You think you have, and you haven't. It puts the most vulnerable newcomers in my community at risk. And I think this is countrywide where we have a lot of newcomers.
Martin, thank you for that question. I can tell you that healthcare providers do more than support newcomers. They support Indigenous persons. They support persons with disabilities and exceptionalities. They look after our seniors, the people who built this country. They look after my 1.5-year-old niece who had an ear infection and no one could figure out what was wrong with her but the doctor, and a female doctor at that. So we all know the important role that physicians and healthcare workers play in our communities and our day-to-day lives. I can tell you that
50
Rural
seconds.
Caucus, Women's Caucus, Cabinet, all MPs are effective voices for their communities. Those voices, also from professionals themselves, have been heard. The legislation that you're referring to, once it's introduced in the House of Commons, will go through a really important democratic process. It includes debate in the House of Commons. It includes hearing further from witnesses and persons with expertise. It will include opportunities for all members to provide input and amendments. It will then be voted upon. It will then go to the Senate for sober second thought, and it will come back to us. And I have a lot of faith in the democratic process, and I know that the consultations we began this process with, which is actually new for federal government to do, will only lead to better outcomes, not just for rural physicians, but for all Canadians who depend on them, for entrepreneurs, for farmers.
Hi,
and
I don't want to take away.
processors.
We still have some more questions. We still have Bernadette asking. Oh, I know.
Take this offline.
Yeah. So if we can continue with Bernadette for her final minutes.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today. I have two approaches, I guess. First of all, we saw the census data that says 62% of managerial positions in Canada are now being held by men. And as much as we are doing as a government to improve women's involvement in leadership roles, how do we go outside of government? How do we attack that problem? Because it is a big problem. And, when you see those numbers, and I guess I'm just wondering, is there a way that we're measuring to make sure that we are making a difference, to see that, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 20 years, that there is actually a movement to having more women in leadership roles and in management positions?
Thank you very much, Bernadette, and welcome. You were a force as the chair for Atlantic Caucus, and you were able to move many mountains and continue to. And we are very fortunate that we now have you as an advocate around this table. We are committed to increasing the participation of women and from diverse backgrounds in all areas of public life, but also within the private sector. So your question was, how can we do this beyond legislation? I will highlight Bill C-25, which is at Senate right now. The focus of it is diversity around corporate boards. And that's important because often it is boards who hire executive CEOs, for example. And so that cultural change and that diversity of perspectives at the top is going to lead to different perspectives and perhaps practices that end up being applied. What we're doing as a federal government, for example, the President of Treasury Board introduced the name-blind recruitment process. And that takes some of the unconscious biases that can sometimes prevent perfectly qualified people from having their resumes and applications moved to the top. We are investing in ensuring that we do a few things. One of the critical pieces, and this came up at the G7 ministerial we had in Italy a few weeks ago, for our daughters to seek positions of power and influence, one of the most critical factors, and often a systemic barrier, is lack of role models. So if she sees someone who looks like her, who talks like her, who's had experiences and a similar background to her, doing something like lead in the House of Commons, like lead in a company, like lead as a woman in media or in other unrepresented fields, she's more likely to dream it and believe that it's possible for her. And that's a really important piece. We also need to make sure that women, and that data showed, we don't negotiate, for example, for higher salaries. We don't always believe that we can reach that next promotion. And so part of that work is internal, and mentorship and coaching and championing is important. But this work is work that individuals can be a part of, but also the government can do through highlighting great women.
Okay, I have another do I have time for another question? Okay, great. I'm going in the other direction now with regards to gender-based violence. And like Sean, I'm also an alumnus of St. FX University, so it's been a rough week. And your comment that 40% of rapes reported happen on campus. The fact that
reported by students.
By students, okay. That they happen on campus. We have to do better.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we as a federal government can be involved with things like make sure that you have a
1 minute remaining.
A sexual violence strategy in place before funding is released. I don't know. I'm throwing that out there as something because I think that there has to be some kind of a movement to lower that number to 0.
Yep, I agree. But hopefully to have more women step up. The same data from Stats Canada shows that who actually steps up makes up about 5% of the actual reality. So 95% of those affected will never come forward. So we need to up those numbers. That said, we need to be respectful.
There's a reason why they don't come forward.
Absolutely, because
which
the
we also
process
have to
can
deal
be
with.
traumatizing and it doesn't always lead to better outcomes, which is why we have a gender-based violence strategy. And we have to work with provinces and territories. Provinces are where the jurisdiction for this work really exists, but they are willing partners, and we are sharing knowledge with them. We're also in the midst of 16 days of activism to address and prevent gender-based violence, and this year's theme is My Actions Matter. Every individual, whether it's as a bystander, as an educator, as a parent, as a business owner, as a politician, has an obligation and an opportunity to be part of that change, and we see that happening. We've had about 10,000 people take the pledge to end gender-based violence on the Status of Women's website right now. That number is growing. The CFL partnership helped. But beyond legislative work, beyond working with provinces, territories, with Indigenous elders and multicultural leaders, we also need to recognize that as individuals, we have powers to be part of that change.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the Minister for staying those extra few minutes. We wanted to make sure that everybody get the opportunity to ask. Please go ahead, Sheila.
Madam Chair, with the committee's consent, I just realized that the student group Our Turn is in the room, and I'd love to ask a very fast question on their behalf.
Do I have consent of the committee?
I think the minister has to go.
It'll be so fast. Can I just even get it on the record? And
Can I get consent of the committee? Can I get consent of the committee to ask the question?
Thank you so much. So Our Turn is a student-led group. Caitlin Salvino is in the room. They're a group trying to develop a national action plan to end campus rape.
Excellent.
And they just issued a
Excellent.
report. It's fantastic.
Excellent.
They asked me to ask you that there's no youth representation on your End Gender Violence Advisory Council. Could you let me know the age of the youngest person?
Oh my goodness.
And if you don't know, would you be able to commit to visiting the membership, because they would love to have a youth voice advising you?
Firstly, I want to thank student leaders like you for stepping up and being part of the change. Secondly, I want to let you know that you are part of a movement of young leaders across this country, on campuses across the country, who are saying enough, who are recognizing their agency, and who are applying their creativity and talent and resourcefulness to be part of the solution. Thirdly, I want to assure you that the voices, firstly, I don't know people's ages specifically, and that's not for me to disclose. However, absolutely, I'm open to enhancing the diversity of voices around that advisory council. We're actively working on that. And yes, the answer to your question is yes.
Absolutely. And thank you very much once again, Minister Monsef. We do have a very active group, as you can see, very, very passionate on these issues. And I would like to thank you for coming and speaking to us today. Of course, there's always going to be turmoil. That's what makes committee so exciting. But thank you very, very much for your time today. Thank you. Before we suspend, I'm just going to invite everybody. We'll take about 2 minutes or less so that we can switch up the panels. And we're going to add an addition. Justine Ackman and Nancy Gardner will be joining us, and the minister will be exiting, so we'll be suspending for 2 minutes. Did you see how gentle? reconvene now, so I just ask that everybody takes their side conversations either outside or dismiss until 1 o'clock. But we're going to start now, and thank you very much, Justine Ackman and Nancy Gardner, for joining this panel. I would like to welcome you all as we continue on. Today has been an excellent discussion, and let's continue that excellent discussion. And we're going to do that with Bernadette Jordan for her, after she swallowed her food. We're going to, but Bernadette, you have 7 minutes.
Okay, I thought there was going to be comments first, but okay, we'll go.
Is there no, there are no comments at this moment.
Thank you. I'll be splitting my time with Sean Fraser. So first of all, I was looking at the SEPBs, and it says here that we're going to transfer $50,000 to the Department of Industry, also known as Innovation, Science and Economic Development, to support networking opportunities for women entrepreneurs. Is there a specific program, or is it just a general pot of money? I'm looking for some guidance on what that's going to be directed towards, and if there is an actual program in place that fund is going to go to.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say thank you to the committee for having me. This is my first appearance as Deputy Minister of Status of Women, which is a new position. And I want to, it's a great honor to be here. Thank you. So in response to that particular transfer, $50,000 being transferred to the Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, it is intended to support networking opportunities of women entrepreneurs. So in Budget 2015, we announced support for an action plan of women entrepreneurs, and a key component of that included the development of an online platform to foster networking opportunities for women entrepreneurs. So to deliver on this, actually, this was part of a larger package that was in place, $200,000 in fact. My earring just fell off. So in Budget 2017, we announced support for women entrepreneurs, and to capitalize on that larger initiative, we took the opportunity to transfer $150,000 to ISED, who would lead the initiative. And that initiative was not in place in 2016-17, so we were not able to transfer the funds at that time. And so what we did is we now transferred the remaining $50,000 planned for the 2017-18 to the initiative.
And also, with regards to the new GBV Knowledge Center, just wondering if you can give us an update on that, when it's going to start, when we can expect to see some movement with it, and if there's the priorities for research in that center.
So from my perspective as Deputy Minister, I see the actual start when we actually begin to have people in place in the Knowledge Centre. So we're at a point in time where we're staffing those opportunities and looking at various individuals. Also, we're looking at finalizing a research plan for the department, and perhaps I can ask Justine if there's anything else, because this falls under the responsibility of her particular part of the department.
Sure. So we do have a team. About half of the people who are anticipated are staffed. Some of them already were in Status of Women and have many, many years of expertise in the area of gender-based violence across all of the different tentacles and all the initiatives going on in different departments. We are planning for some sort of at least online presence, a light one, early in the new fiscal year. And we are very, very actively working already with our key stakeholders. That's other federal departments, the provinces and territories, civil society organizations, and the Minister's Gender-Based Advisory Committee to develop thorough action plans for each component of the gender-based violence strategy, with a focus, of course, on the ones that are under the responsibility of the Minister of Status of Women. So that process is unfolding. And in terms of the research, as Deputy Wilson said, we do have a strategy, and some of the products which were part of the gender-based violence strategy are quite deep into their development already, including a national gender-based violence survey for the first time in many years.
So with regards to that, to the staffing and the research, we just heard from the Minister that 40% of reported rapes are on campuses. And is there a designated research staff to deal with the problem that we're having on university campuses right now?
Why don't you just continue, Justine?
Okay. So it is part of the gender-based violence strategy to fund a survey of post-secondary education. It's a population-based survey, so it is different from what's going on already in several provinces who do have jurisdiction over universities and campuses. And I wanted to just add that this is a sensitivity for the federal government. When we start actually taking action on campus, we do have to be sensitive to jurisdictional issues, but yes, we do. We are just in the very, very early stages of designing a survey on violence on post-secondary campuses. But it is, as I said, it won't be done right on campus. It will be a population-based survey done by Statistics Canada.
Okay, thank you. Sean, did you want to?
Sure. Thanks very much, Bernadette. Just building on the jurisdictional issue, one of the things that we heard the minister talk about was sort of the provincial and territorial cooperation that's necessary to achieve some of the ends that she hopes to achieve. Being sensitive to the jurisdictional issues, are there different ways that the department's identified to actually get through this jurisdictional barrier? We heard at length during our studies, you got to get in schools, you got to deal with early childhood education, and we've kind of reduced some of our recommendations to observations because of this jurisdictional problem. Is the best way to deal with this maybe dealing with calls for proposals that community organizations can partner with school boards, universities, and the like, or is there another way to achieve this end?
So what Justine was referring to was a Stats Canada population-based survey where there'd be an identifier for students, per se, post-secondary students. When it comes to calls for proposals, we're absolutely open to those kinds of initiatives. And Justine, Nancy, feel free to comment on that. But we're certainly willing to consider research opportunities that are part of project-based funding.
I'll jump in.
It goes on by itself.
By itself, sorry. I'm officially the old timer at Status of Women Canada, having been there for 2.5 years. I have a bit of more corporate memory than some of my colleagues now. There was an initiative to fund civil society organizations looking at the issue of campus-based violence a few years ago, and the results that's through our grants and contributions program, which my colleague Nancy Gardner has recently become responsible for. The results of those projects was rolled up, and one of the things that we do in our grants and contributions program is we make sure to invest in knowledge transfer. So that means rolling up the results at a national level and using various fora, including online platforms, to share that information across the country so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, including for guidelines on campus violence.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I didn't give you my limit. I had food in my mouth, so I apologize. We're now going to move over to Martin Shields for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Swallowing soup? Good. All right. Help me out here in the sense of we have some great people on the panel who know a lot of stuff, and I don't know what you do. So what I'm looking for is someone who, because you probably listened to my line of questioning previously, who is the one that advises the minister when we talk a whole of government approach, is what legislation is policy, what is being developed, who works with advising the minister on those pieces of legislation, who's keeping track of it, so you have a whole of government approach to looking at status of women?
So I would suggest that we do that as a team of senior managers responsible for the agency. Myself as Deputy Minister is the senior advisor to the Minister when it comes to all policy, program, operational, corporate issues. However, we are divided into different branches in the organization. So Nick, to my left here, is our Chief Financial Officer responsible for corporate services. Nancy Gardner, as mentioned, is responsible for our women's program, our grants and contributions, and our regional operations. And Justine Ackman, to my right, is responsible for policy development and coordination and strategic advice as well.
So as you describe that, you're talking about a lot of the internal things that you're doing. So whose responsibility is to watch what other departments are doing in their developing of their policies?
So I would say, again, we work as a team. We're all responsible for elements of that. Certainly when it comes to policy initiatives of other government departments, we generally can sit on interdepartmental committees or different fora. We can comment on initiatives. We can work proactively or reactively with our colleagues in other different departments, and it really depends on the issue.
So as this is growing in a sense of its priority and importance, the role that you then provide to other departments, has the awareness begun to knock down the silos that you're there and you're watching? Is there a communication that's going both ways, or is it basically one way?
And if I can clarify, Madam Chair, this being women's issues, gender issues, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say definitely I've seen a change. I've been in government for almost 20 years now in various departments, and it's 6 months here at Status of Women, and I can say that there has been a shift in culture and thinking, certainly at my senior management tables around many of these issues. There's certainly been more emphasis on gender-based analysis, and there's certainly been more consideration of all of those elements over the last number of years, yes.
So with your experience of 20 years, then you have extreme knowledge of the silos that you have to deal with. Can you give me an example of how you're dealing with those silos?
Silos and horizontality is a very pervasive challenge across government, I would say, on many issues. Gender issues being one of them, certainly. I'm not going to say that it's an easy kind of endeavor to undertake. However, it's one that we're consistently working at. So an example would be gender-based analysis, and I think the minister very effectively responded to some of those questions in talking about GBA Plus and our efforts to create a new culture in government, for instance, with the 80,000 public servants who have taken the online course around GBA Plus, that being a good example, and that begins to shift the conversation around policies and programs and operations.
So as you look at this committee, what do you think we as a committee could do that would facilitate what you just described as a process?
Being new to this role and being new to your committee, I'm not exactly certain, and probably my colleagues are, as to what you have undertaken so far. But I know certainly from my own perspective, learning for me in this area has been one that has probably been most effective by some of the encounters I've had in the visits I've had with some of the regions, perhaps some of the service-based organizations, some of the non-governmental organizations, where I've certainly learned a lot. So my advice to this committee would be to get out and actually visit some of these entities or institutions, organizations, and interact. And I'm sure the committee has, and many of you have already.
So how much time?
Minutes.
Minutes. When you talk about going out, because I'm sort of a grassroots guy that believes that the carrot will do a lot more than a stick. So if you can get out to the communities, to the grassroots, if you can find mechanisms to take that to the grassroots and incentivize it, you absolutely get more change, but you also get more creative change. Can you describe, when you say you go out and learn, what did you find when you went out there and learned that you say, hey, because I went out there and saw? Can you give me an example of something that, hey, I saw something because I went out? Because you're saying we should do that, so can you give me an example of?
Okay, yes. One vivid experience I would say that was a takeaway for me was my visit to Prince Edward Island, for instance, where I came to understand by meeting with a number of different representatives and non-governmental organizations that they work very well horizontally together. Now this is being on the island per se, and many groups do work together, but there was definitely a lot of synergies with these organizations working together and leveraging off one another, and that was a very good takeaway.
Okay, thank you.
40 seconds, Rachel. Okay, we're good? All right, we're going to move on to Sheila Malcolmson for her 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the Status of Women representatives, and particularly to Deputy Minister Wilson. I'm really glad to see your appointment. So following on my colleagues' questions about hearing from the grassroots, we've had, in the studies that we've done from the very beginning, we've invited a lot of people that are on the front line of providing service to women in need, whether that's domestic violence, whether it's advocating for economic justice, for an end to the tragedy of murdered and missing Indigenous women. I can't think of a single grassroots group that has not said what we need is operational funding. They apply for programs, they innovate, they pilot, they collaborate. Of course, women's organizations have been collaborating for decades. They say we're exhausted by it. It's speculative. We put a lot of staff time into trying to fit the new criteria of program funding. But really what we need is to keep the lights on, or to renovate so that we have a safer workplace for our employees in dangerous situations. Operational funding, and they say again and again, provincial and federal governments have abrogated to us this frontline service. Why don't we just admit that it's that we're the ones that are going to do this work? We need operational funding. That was reflected in the NDP's recommendation in the Violence Against Young Women and Girls recommendation. The federal government provide consistent operational funding for frontline community organizations working to protect victims and end violence against women and girls. So can you put on the record why not?
Certain goes on by itself, right? Okay. Certainly, you've heard that message loud and clear in your travels. The committee has heard it. I would say Minister Monsef has heard it in spades. I certainly have heard it from organizations, and I know my colleagues here have as well. I would say that at the current time, we provide $19 million annually, and we look at about 300 projects representing some of the challenges faced by women and girls in the areas of violence, economic security, prosperity, leadership, and advancing equality. So I would also add that at this point, we're looking at our terms and conditions for our current program to see how it can more effectively respond to some of those concerns and issues. Those terms and conditions are a tool that will need to be approved by Treasury Board, but certainly that is one activity we are undertaking. And I don't know, Nancy, if you have anything more to add than that. Okay.
The consensus recommendations of the committee, recommendation 42 and 44, asked that the Government of Canada prioritize funds for local sexual violence prevention services and sexual violence support services. That government should ensure its funding programs are working to identify and effectively serve the needs of frontline services. In the minister's response, those recommendations didn't feel like they were directly responded to, or it was hard to follow. So I'm hoping that you can respond in more detail about what has happened with those two recommendations: prioritizing funds for local sexual prevention services, all support services, and ensuring that they're effectively serving the needs of frontline organizations. And if it isn't possible to respond in detail now, if we could have a written follow-up.
I'd be more than glad to respond more in detail and in writing to you. At this time, we have a certain set of money that we're allocated by Parliament to run the program that we do. We're doing that as effectively as we can, and we're trying to stretch every dollar to get the most maximum impact with the programming that we do have. Certainly, I know from my own personal experience, having run a crisis shelter at the community level, I know how difficult it is and how challenging it can be to keep the lights on and to keep funding going, and do acknowledge many of those organizations who do that.
Thank you for hearing that. Not that I'm advocating the program, limited funding. However, given that that's the model we have right now, I have heard from organized labor that they've been declared ineligible for any of the program funding. I've heard Status of Women staff members say it was organized labor that kept the women's movement alive during the decade of the Conservative government that preceded this one. So we recognize they've got a huge amount of expertise, they've got a huge engagement of membership, and they've got a direct way to pull their membership. I think, for example, organized labor representing women in precarious work and in hotel services. They've got just an amazing membership that could be drawn on. Can you explain, is it true that they're not eligible to apply for some of the program and research funding? And if not, why not?
Thank you for that. That's been very helpful for me to understand better some of those issues that I certainly have heard about. I talked about our terms and conditions and some of the adjustments that we're looking at there, and I'll ask Nancy Gardner, who is responsible for our women's program, to reply, please.
Thank you, Deputy. As Deputy Wilson said, the terms and conditions for the program are currently being reviewed, and as part of the terms and conditions, you review who's eligible to apply, the activities, things that are eligible in terms of expenditures. And so this is one area that we will be reviewing in terms of their eligibility for the opportunity to apply for program funding.
1 minute left.
And I just would recommend UFCW, which has a membership of 60% women, especially in the frontline food and hotel services where women are particularly economically vulnerable, particularly reliant on part-time work, more likely to be racialized. They've noted to me that in the States, the survey that was done by organized labor there on the degree of sexual violence in the workplace of that type of worker was heartbreaking. And UFCW is, and Canadian Labour Congress, I believe, are eager to do an equivalent Canadian study, and I just urge you, if you do get such a proposal, I think that we as a country would greatly benefit from the expertise and data gathering that they could do on all of our behalf.
Absolutely noted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. We're now going to move on to our next 7 minutes with Eva Nassif.
Et merci à vous, fonctionnaires du ministère.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the officials for coming here, along with the minister, to answer our questions. Thank you for coming here. My first question is for Ms. Ackman. The last time that you were here, you talked about the progress and implementation of the GBS Plus. Has it been recently updated? And if so, have there been particular areas where a lot of progress has been made?
It's, as my colleagues know, it's one of my favorite topics because status of women, well, when we've appeared here for the last 2.5 years, we've talked about this as trying to turn a big ship around. So I was thinking about this morning, and I think we're due kind of southwest at the moment. I think that ship is turning. It has a lot to do with leadership, which does come from the Prime Minister himself, but also many members in the current cabinet are speaking very vocally about gender-based analysis. A huge leap forward has been gender budgeting. And nobody can make people act and react like the Department of Finance. And as long and as hard as we've been trying at Status of Women Canada, just that exercise alone has really changed how Ottawa is functioning. We are working together to think about what results the government as a whole is going to achieve on gender equality, which links back to our gender-based analysis role. So to get everybody kind of marching in the same direction, because if you don't do that, these are hard issues to move on. They're hard societal issues to change and very entrenched issues. So we need everybody marching in the same direction. And part of that GBA work is to work with other levels of government and civil society organizations so that we all have a common vision for gender equality. Our day-to-day work back at the office is still that our phones are ringing off the hook. I receive continually sort of panicky emails at nights on weekends, but this is a good thing. I mean, people are taking GBA seriously and they want to get it right across all of government. And many of them are doing a much, much better job than they used to be up front. What we're seeing, and this is, it's a bit processy, but it's very profound. GBAs used to be done as a side product, as an afterthought to the core policy or program initiative. And we've been working with departments across the government to make sure that it actually has an impact on the recommendations and options that are being put forward, both for policy development and implementation, very importantly. So it's still a process. We're not all the way yet. And what I would like to say is what we're trying to do is work ourselves out of a job. And maybe, we need to rebrand GBA a little bit. This needs to be an instinctual process of policymakers and program implementators across all governments. And without really solid gender-based analysis, you're actually not developing programs and policies that are responsive to gender equality and to the incredible diversity which characterizes Canada. So that's our big picture goal.
Merci.
Thank you. I have another question. Perhaps Ms. Wilson could answer it. Could you please comment on Bill C-65, which doesn't pertain to your department, but which pertains rather to the Department of Employment? This bill will have a big impact on women, and it will have an impact on their lives professionally and individually. Could you please, if you know, how will this bill change the landscape? Thank you for your question, and I will answer in English, if I may.
November 7th, the government introduced Bill C-65. This bill we received a lot of feedback on this bill very positively because all women in Canada, from our perspective, have the right to a workplace free of harassment and sexual violence. And definitely as part of our own gender-based violence strategy, we are looking at issues like workplace harassment. So that'll be part of our more global approach to gender-based violence strategy, including things like data collection and working with federal institutions like Treasury Board, the RCMP, Canada Armed Forces, and that are very large workplaces as well, and ensuring that those workplaces are free from harassment and discrimination.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. I'll now be sharing my time with my colleague, Ms. Damoff.
Remaining with us for the last part, and Ms. Aikman, you talked a lot about is it Aikman or Ackman? Ackman, I'm sorry. The amount of work that we are doing on gender-based analysis. When the minister was here, there were a lot of questions about what is being done with gender-based analysis. Was any of this being done prior to October 2015, when the government was elected?
There was gender-based analysis has been a mandatory function for many, many years in the federal government. So in the development of policies and programs. And there was an action plan in place before. So Status of Women did guide departments to develop action plans.
I think what we heard, though, when we did our study was that it was there, but even the Auditor General had called out a number of departments for not using it. Was there ever a budget that had a gender statement on it before?
This is the first time for Canada that there has been a GBA of a federal budget.
Okay, and are you aware if memorandums to Cabinet have ever had gender analysis done on those before?
As I mentioned, doing a gender-based assessment has been a mandatory part of memorandum to Cabinet for a long time. But, there's variations on that theme in terms of how detailed it is.
And where it's done in the process, too, was something that we heard, whether it was done early in the process before it came or when it arrived. Okay, thank you. I think I have 10 seconds left, so that's good.
Exactly. Thank you very much. We're going to now move on to our second panel, or our second round, to Rachel Harder for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Are you able to confirm for me when the PCO guidance on GBA Plus was implemented for all departments?
I cannot personally, so unless any of my colleagues are aware of a date, we can certainly get back to you with that.
Was it your department that oversaw that implementation?
PCO's development of PCO guidance?
Yeah, did you work in partnership with them on that?
We would not have overseen it, but we would have definitely partnered with them to develop
but
that.
You don't know when that was implemented?
I don't have a date in front of me.
As I've mentioned, there's been some gender-based analysis done on policy proposals for some time. I don't have an exact date. I think we can easily get that for you, probably following Beijing and our commitments to gender-based analysis. But in the last 2.5 years, PCO has issued new advice on gender-based analysis and how to ensure that it's being done in a way that's meaningful a few times, including by working with us.
Okay. So using the authorities and the expenditures by vote tool from the Treasury Board, I was looking at this document and I noticed that in 2015 to 16, you lapsed $1.6 million. Of that, $1.57 million of that came from the Advancing Equality for Women program activity. And in 2016 to 2017, you lapsed an additional $1.1 million, of which more than $600,000 of that was lapsed under the Strategic Policy Analysis Planning and Development Program activity. Now, you answered a member earlier, and you said that you understand, and I'm actually quoting you, stretching every dollar, particularly when it comes to programs. Now, if you're stretching every dollar, because the member was asking you why more money isn't being put into these programs, and you said the department is already stretching every dollar, but the document I'm referring to actually tells us there's actually money left in the pot that isn't even being used in order to advance these programs. So can you clarify for me as to why this money is going unused?
I can certainly clarify what I understand about lapses and lapses at Status Women Canada, and I can ask Nick to provide you more detail. So certainly there are always opportunities, and every department will always aim to spend all the money they have, invest all the money they have, or transfer it to other departments. Definitely that is always the objective of a department, of a deputy minister, of a CFO. However, there are times where there are lapses for reasons that are unforeseen. Certainly these are lapses that would be, in my view, ones that would be clearly explainable in some of these estimates, and Nick can give you more details.
So would it be a valid concern then for me, when I look at the $2.9 million that you're seeking authority to spend in the supplementary estimates that this committee has been given, I'm looking at $1.7 million that is already lapsed, has gone unspent, and now you're asking for another $2.9 million. What kind of faith should this committee or should the Canadian public place in your department with regards to spending that money properly and making sure that these programs are well taken care of?
Perhaps I can ask Nick to just finalize the response to the earlier question on the reason for that particular lapse, and parliamentarians can certainly have a comment on that.
Okay, so in the same vein, in the quarterly financial report, the department had only spent about 20% of its annual personnel budget in the in the second quarter in June. In the first quarter, they only spent 19%. Now, at this rate, you would lapse $3 million by the end of the year. So again, we have a lapse of $3 million. Now, are you planning on ramping up hiring that dramatically over the next 6 months, or are we looking at another significant lapse?
Confuse me there with a potential lapse of $3 million that I'm not aware of.
I just want to respond back. Rachel had asked a question. I don't know if Nick had the opportunity to respond to your question.
Did you want the response, the details
Yeah.
to that particular lapse?
Question that it needed to get back to me. I didn't realize you had it today.
We have it today.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Then yes.
Yes, so just to address, for the quarterly financial report, we spent 50% of our funding for this fiscal year. For the lapse of 2016-17, the 1.1 million, there was 150,000 that was a lapse in grants and contribution, and this funding was earmarked for the action plan for Women Entrepreneur Initiative, and the minister had explained that it's because the initiative was not yet in place. So that's the reason for that 150. And out of the the balance, there's 500,000 that was carried forward for this year as part of the 5% that the department are allowed to carry forward. So this is money that is available to spend this year. And the rest is money that was frozen for the collective agreements. So it was a frozen amount that we weren't allowed to spend last year. So it's, it was out of our control not to spend it, but it's also to allow us to spend it this year when the collective agreement payment came through.
I would really like to thank all the panelists. We are now running out of time because we have to go into business, if you don't mind. But I would really like to thank Justine, Deputy Wilson, Anik, and Nancy for coming and giving us your expertise. We really do appreciate it. We're now going to move on to some business. There are some different issues that we need to bring forward. And before the panel leave? Yes, you do not need to say, but as we're going to carry forward, what we have, of course, there was some estimates that were circulated to everybody, and as we're moving forward, I have it right here. We would like to now vote on the supplementary estimates. So pursuant to Standing Order 8815, the committee will now dispose of the supplementary estimates for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2018. Shall vote 1B under Office of the Coordinator, Status of Women, carry? Can I have a vote, please? For, carry, and against? Okay, wonderful. So that will carry. Thank you very much. Now we're going to continue on. Of course, on Tuesday, I'm just going to bring this up. Of course, Tuesday was a little bit crazy for us. So we are working with both the clerk and the analysts to make sure that we have the opportunity to see those panelists once again, because it's very important. And we recognize that there was only a short period of time. I believe there was 9 minutes that we were able to receive answers. And then, of course, we didn't get the final panel at all. So we are looking at that so we can move forward and make sure that they're part of our study and part of our witnesses. Moving forward, it was being brought to my attention by our clerk that unfortunately Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada has indicated that they are not going to come for our study on Indigenous women. So this is going to be a bit of an issue. And so I want to work with you because I think I'm putting my hat on saying I think it's really important that we have them here at the table, but I want to hear how you as the committee, how we would like to move forward on this and request from the committee for them to appear because at this point they have denied us. So I'm going to pass it to the clerk to provide a couple options on how we can proceed so that we can decide how we will proceed with this because I believe that they should be at the table. So I'm putting on a little of a hat there for you. So, clerk?
Ms. Harder first.
Oh, Ms. Harder.
Madame Harder, vous avez une question? Non. Le greffière peut d'abord en parler. Juste pour préciser, j'ai parlé avec mon contact aux affaires du Nord. Et puis, la réponse était d'autres ministères étaient en mesure de répondre aux questions soulevées par le comité. Donc, il incombe donc au comité à décider si on veut faire adopter une motion demandant à quelqu'un de comparaître pour répondre aux questions. Ensuite, on pourra peut-être envoyer une deuxième invitation si on a des questions plus précises. Pam ou Rachel. Alors, est-ce qu'on nous recommande quel ministère serait en mesure de répondre à nos questions? J'ai posé la question, j'attends toujours la réponse. Pam. Parfois, cette personne ne comprend pas l'étendue de notre demande. Serait-il utile d'aller revoir ces gens-là pour mieux expliquer la situation? Pam, j'ai pensé que ce serait peut-être, vous pourriez peut-être intervenir et soulever la question auprès du ministre ou de la ministre. Est-ce qu'on devrait faire comparaître des témoins d'abord pour ensuite entendre les représentants du ministère? Est-ce qu'il serait plus utile d'abord de mieux comprendre les enjeux avant de faire comparaître ces gens-là? Je m'engage à parler au ministère et à la ministre pour encourager la comparution, mais je pose la question au comité. Est-ce que vous aimeriez faire comparaître d'autres témoins en premier? Lorsqu'on veut établir le panel. Des fois, on a déjà des créneaux prévus pour les fonctionnaires ministériels. Est-ce qu'on... Je pense que cela devrait faire partie de nos discussions. Sheila. Merci, Madame la Présidente. Une question. Quel ministère va comparaître de ces deux ministères qui s'occupent des affaires autochtones? Et à l'avenir, je crois j'aimerais, au fin du procès verbal, que ce soit clair qu'on a vraiment invité ces gens-là.
Our terms of reference at the time of the invitation, so they know the scope of what we might be asking them. And absolutely, I'm happy to work with a time that works for those departmental officials. And I agree there's some merit in us hearing from people on the front lines and inside the justice system before we hear from the ministerial or departmental representatives. So I'm happy to be flexible, but absolutely we need them to be with us.
Thank you. And Rachel.
Sure. I would echo what Sheila just said. I guess basically, some of our recommendations from this report, I would imagine, are going to go forward to this department. So it would seem appropriate then that they come and be here. I think that's...
Okay. Please go ahead to the clerk.
Just to answer a few questions, I've been in contact with mainly with a parliamentary affairs person at Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada. And we have been, both the analyst and myself, have been in contact with them to explain to them the terms of reference of the study, so they are aware of what it is exactly that we're studying. And what they've been telling me is that they are having a hard time identifying a specific person within either branch of the department to appear before the committee.
Okay. So what I understand is we do have a couple options as well, and I think it's up to the committee on how we would like to proceed. We can do a letter from the committee requesting once again that we're doing this, or there can be also a letter from the chair. But it seems that we have consensus on that we want them here, with the variable being at what point in the study. So how would we like to proceed? Go ahead, Sean.
Correct me, Sheila, if I'm wrong. I think your suggestion was to say, look, if they're flexible and can come later, why don't we hear from a couple witnesses? That would give Pam time to make good on her undertaking to speak to the minister or the department. Excellent. And revisit this issue maybe over the next couple of meetings. It strikes. I think everybody kind of thinks we should get them here.
Yeah,
if we can add a little ammunition to our request by hearing testimony saying we heard X, Y, Z, we want the department's perspective. I think that would be a prudent approach.
Awesome. And Pam?
I was just going to say, if you strictly look at the terms of reference of our study, and we're talking about justice and corrections, they don't administer justice and they don't administer the corrections. So our study's broader than that, though, in terms of access to justice. So those are the kind of things that certainly would. So I mean, I'll explain that to them, because we do want to make sure we also get the right person here.
Absolutely.
Right? But they're not administering justice or the corrections part of it, so that doesn't fall with theirs. It's more the before and after. So I can explain that to the minister and make sure that they can bring someone here that will be helpful to what we're looking at.
Great. And Sheila?
So that we don't lose momentum or eat up more committee time on this, I'm going to propose that we give a little bit of time to proceed as Vice Chair Damoff has suggested, but that we put a motion on the floor directing the chair to request on the committee's behalf that the department appear, but that what I'm going to propose is, say, by December 14th. If we haven't had an answer in the affirmative, then the chair would go ahead and formalize our request.
Okay.
So with that, I move that the committee request that the Status of Women Committee Chair FEWO write to, is it still Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada, or do we name the two?
We can identify that. We probably should name the two just to be on the safe side.
Which is the Indigenous Affairs and the Crown and Indigenous Services, the two agencies, to request that they appear before the committee to assist us with this study on Indigenous women's access and experience in the justice and correction system.
I'm just going to go ahead, Pam.
Are we not supposed to be here? committee business?
We can go into camera if we wish at this time, but there was no, would we like to,
We normally do for committee business, and I just looked up and saw that we're not.
Okay. Do we have a unanimous
At this
consent to
point,
go
it
in?
doesn't matter.
No, it's not committee business, period. It's very specified, the items of committee business that we go in camera for, and this is not one.
No, fair enough. Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Is this a votable motion, I assume? Votable motion. Shall this motion carry to invite following December 14th through the chair to invite the organizations to come? Can I have yays? Nays? Happy, joyful? We're carrying on.
And we need to adopt the budget.
And we, did I not do that on the first of supplementary estimates? You know, and you're absolutely right. Also, previously there was the budget. Now that we know who the guests are going to be, the witnesses are going to be with this study, we are now able to table the budget, and everybody should have received that in circulation. Do we have, I would like to put forward a vote to accept the budget. Okay, so yeas to accept the budget, and nays to not accept the budget for the...
Pardon me, I meant to vote yes.
Okay, and any nays on this? Okay, and that is carried. Any further budget? I think we're happy. I think we're good. Yeah. Once again, thank you very much, and we will. I'll just inform you next Tuesday on December the 5th. We will be having for the first hour the Office of the Auditor General of Canada, followed by the second hour from the Department of Justice, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and at this time we do not have Indigenous Affairs, but they were scheduled. So we'll see how we can move forward. Thank you very much, and this meeting is adjourned.